Are you trying to figure out the naturalization process? In today's video, I will explain how to apply for US citizenship in 5 easy steps. Without any further ado, let's dive in. So for step 1, before you do anything, make sure you qualify for naturalization. The two big requirements for naturalization are how long you have had your green card and the residency requirement. If you got your green card through marriage, then you need to have had your green card for 3 years before you are eligible for naturalization. If you got your green card in any other way, it's typically 5 years. However, there is a 90-day rule that allows you to apply for naturalization 90 days before you hit these deadlines. So if you got your green card through marriage, you can actually apply once you've had your green card for 2 years and 9 months and 4 years and 9 months if you got your green card in a different way. So to figure out where your clock starts, simply look at the front of your green card and look at the issue date and count 3 or 5 years from that date. Then the second requirement is the residency requirement. It's also known as continuous physical presence. What this means is that as a green card holder, you must have been living in the US for the past 3 or 5 years depending on how you got your green card. Continuous presence does not mean that you cannot leave the country in that time, but you do need to keep tabs on how much time you're spending out of the US. So basically, you need to spend 6 months out of every year in the US. If you did leave the US for more than 6 months, but less than 1 year, you may still meet the eligibility criteria for naturalization. So basically, if you plan to apply, please keep tabs of how long you spend out of the US just to be on the safe side. However, absences of more than a year typically break the required continuity for citizenship. So it's better to avoid it than to be sorry. So if you fall into this zone, I'll highly recommend you speak with an immigration attorney, as there are sometimes exceptions to this if you have been out for more than a year or so, or more than 6 months. There are also other important requirements that you should make sure you meet. So I'm going to link it to an article in the description below. So be sure to check that list out for the remaining requirements for citizenship. But then again, in this video, it covers basically everything and all the steps on how to apply. So after the requirements, now is step 2, which is completing and filing the form N-400. As you can see on the screen, walking you through these processes. So this is the main form and the first step in the citizenship process. Okay, so there are 2 ways to do this. You can either complete the form online, or you may fill it out in its paper form and mail it to your with your supporting documents. So if you want us to create videos of the walkthrough step by step, then you're in the right place, because in this video I'm walking you through how to actually fill out the form. So you just need to follow in this video and then you're gonna see how to fill out the form. So if you're wondering how much does it cost to become a US citizen, the filing fee for the form N-400 is $640, and your biometric fee for your fingerprinting is $85, bringing it to a total of $725. But then again, guys, as you will see in the first page, it's gonna tell you that it really depends on the individual. So it can be slightly different for each individual depending on certain requirements or on the answers you give. But typically it's around $710 to $725. Right? So if you choose to work with an attorney, there will be additional legal fees to be paid directly to the attorney if you want to work with an attorney. And if you're wondering how long does it take to become a US citizen, the average processing time for Form N-400 is like 10 months to 1 year. However, your timeline may be shorter or longer depending on where you reside and which field office is handling your application. Additionally, you'll spend some time waiting on your citizenship interview, test, and oath ceremony. So in all, expect to wait about 10 to 20 months and even a little bit more in some states. So step 3 is attaining your biometric appointment. So once your application has been accepted, you receive an appointment notice in the mail with the location and date of your fingerprinting appointment. This notice usually arrives 2 to 3 weeks after filing with an appointment date that is another 1 or 2 weeks out. So be sure to take this notice with you to your biometric appointment. And the next step is attending your citizenship interview. So after your fingerprinting, the USCIS will assign you an interview date. This can be anywhere from 10 to 14 months after filing your naturalization application. So as I mentioned before, the timeline really depends on the field of office assigned to your case, which depends on where you reside. So at this interview, the officer will conduct the citizenship test, review your application, and clarify any issues. There are two parts to the naturalization test. There's the English test and the civics test. As part of the civics test, you'll be asked 10 questions, of which you have to get 6 correct. So these 10 questions are drawn from a bank of 100 questions, which you can study beforehand. As for the English test, when I talked to people that went through the citizenship process recently, they were given like one sentence to read and then write as well. So if you pass the test, the officer will recommend that your application be approved. So when these people attended the test, they told me they received a sheet of paper like the one you can see. It's just like a plain sheet, and then that will have all your interview results, right? And if your application is denied, you receive a letter in the mail explaining the grounds for denial, or the officer may still tell you on the spot that it has been denied. And common reasons why they can deny you your application include failure to pay taxes, or the inability to demonstrate continuous presence in the US, or failing the civics or English tests. So it's that simple. Most times you will even know why you were denied before the end of after they tell you, you will know that, okay, this is why I was denied, okay? So if everything goes well and you get accepted, then the next step, which is step 5, is to be sworn in at the oath ceremony as a US citizen. So soon after the interview, you receive an appointment notice with the details of your oath interview. So this is the moment you become a US citizen and take the oath of allegiance. At the end of the ceremony, you will receive your naturalization certificate, which is your proof of your US citizenship. Now you know exactly what to do to file your naturalization application. But then if you're wondering if you've had prior arrests or unpaid taxes or supporting documentation that are not in English, there is a guide that you can go through, a checklist that you can go through, and all tips and steps to see what to do in that case, right? So please be sure to watch this video up to the end as I walk you through all the steps of applying and making sure that you fill in the application correctly. And please make sure to read the instructions very closely. But now, before starting the process, you have an idea of what the steps are and everything it looks like after you have filled out this form correctly. So the longest part of this form is when the test trying to see your level of morality. Basically asks you if you have been arrested, you've assaulted someone, you have taken drugs, you've killed someone. Like, they just asking you all those questions to make sure that your background is clean. But again, if your background is not clean, there are steps and processes and requirements that come with that. And just looking at the screen, guys, for you see where this number fills in. If you have ever filed a form before, it's gonna automatically give you a number, so you don't need to be worried about that. And then it's just showing you exactly where you can find your A number. And so it's right there where you can find your A number. And then it's going to ask you if you want a social security card to replace when you get your citizenship, to replace the new one, because most times you have the one just for work only. If you want that replaced, then you can say yes. If not, yes, you can say no. And then this number comes in automatic if you've ever filed for something online before. And then it's going to ask this is just basic information about your gender, your ethnicity. It's going to ask about your race, your height, your weight, and all of that good stuff. So these are really just basic information: the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, and yeah. Okay. It's gonna ask where you have worked in the past 5 years, in the last 5 years. But read the instructions very closely, right? There's something for military and there's something for if you're not in the military, and the requirements. So make sure you read it closely before putting in your entry. Okay, it's gonna ask if you've taken a trip outside of the United States in the last 5 years. If you say yes, it's gonna ask you to fill in all the places where you went to, how long you were there, and all of that good stuff. Yeah, you married, single, divorced. What's your status? How many children do you have? If you say you have one, it's gonna tell you to add. You have to add information for all the children. If you say two, you have to add information for all the children. Have you ever claimed to be a U.S. citizenship in writing or any other way? No, hopefully no, because if it's yes, automatically you cannot get through, because it's like it's a crime saying you're US citizens if you're not, right? It's gonna ask you, have you ever registered to vote or voted any federal, state law, local, or in the United States? Note, you can vote locally but not federally if you're not yet a US citizen. Do you now live, or have you ever, or do you have a hereditary title? Some people are from places where they are kings, chiefs, so it just depends on the individual. Do you currently have any overdue federal, state, or local taxes in the United States? That's personal. You should know what to put there. Since you became a lawful resident, have you called yourself a non-US resident on a federal, state, local tax return, or decided not to file tax return because you consider yourself a non-US resident? Typically, your answer should be no. And then, yeah, it's just gonna be asking if you've ever been involved in any crime of any kind. Have you advocated for any party of any kind? Associated yourself with any group in the world that most times has to do with illegal stuff? It's gonna ask you these questions. Please take your time to read each of the questions. I'm just going through them a little bit faster because it's like typically most or all the answers should be no. But if for any reason you've been involved in any of them, take your time to read it. Because I mean, different individuals have different experiences, right? We don't assume everything will be no. So after that, you go to questions. Just is asking pre-military questions. Have I used weapons? This is moral character questions, right? Have you ever used any weapons or anything like that? Recruitment information, crimes. Have you ever been involved in any crimes, any illegal activity? Military service. If you're someone that's been in the military, you should definitely look at and please, if you've been in the military, please look closely at the questions, because there are some requirements there that will tell you, even if you have been in the military service, this is slightly different from if you have not been, right? So please make sure you look closely at those underline notes after the main question, because it guides you better on what to write exactly. Okay, guys? Yes, so all of this is just about your moral character, so that's why I rushed a little bit over this, because it's just asking you those general questions. Do you support the Constitution reform in the United States? Typically, your answer should be yes. I mean, you're trying to become a US citizen, right? So, ideally, that should be your answer. But again, different individuals have different responses or approaches to different things, right? And then after all that is said and done, you have, do you understand the full oath of allegiance in the United States and all of that? Because as I mentioned earlier, you have to take an oath, and that's like the last step. So they're hoping you understand. You have to provide your current marriage certificate and previous marriage documents as proof. And then if you have any additional documents, this is where you're going to put it. So in terms of documentation, not a lot is needed to, and then you see the fee here. So this is the fee, and this is, I mean, this is for me, right? So they might be a little bit different. It might be a little bit different for you, but as I told you, it ranges from that 710 to 725. And on your application, there should be no alerts. So there are alerts because there are things that you're not filling for this one, right? There should be no alerts. It should be green tick saying no alerts before you're even able to submit. It's not going to allow you to click the submit button if there are any alerts. But again, and once you click next, it's going to take you to the whole form for you to review it very closely. So take your time to review it. If you have any questions, if you need me to apply for you, to help you apply one-on-one, I'm at your service, a very affordable fee just for my time. So thank you for watching up to this point, and see you in my next video. Bye bye.